is an excellent backup to the previous two lessons that we did, that we had the rebroadcasting of the Bible versus Christianity Part 1, the Bible versus Christianity Part 2. Now this will show from Scripture, because one of Christians' favorite doctrines and one of their favorite people of the Bible is the emissary Shaul, whom they refer to as the Apostle Paul. They love to base everything of their belief on a few twisted verses that they have twisted from Paul's letters, Shaul's letters. They have put Shaul's letters even over the teaching of the Messiah. And because Christianity has done this, a lot of people, especially Hebrew Israelites that know they are Hebrews, they look at this and they say, well, Paul can't be a true apostle because his words are being put over the Messiah. Paul did not do that. Shaul did not do that. People have done this to him. So as he is our brother, he's going to be shown to be our brother because he teach and he believed the same thing we do. He believed in Yahushua HaMashiach and keeping the commandments of Yah, just as we teach. So he is a brother. Yahushua said, who is my mother, my brother, and my sister? Those who do the will of my Father. Shaul was an apostle that did such. Now, part 1, we're going to deal with just showing you what Shaul says about himself. We're going to show you some of the teachings that he gave. In part 2, we're going to come back and we're going to go through the books of Galatians. We're going to go through several chapters of Galatians, several books of the book of Galatians, and just show you that Shaul was not saying you don't have to keep the law anymore. Because if you understand the foundation, if the man said, hey, you have to keep the law, you can't be a sinner. And you got to know what end of the law that Shaul was saying was done away with, because that's a part of the law that is not done away with. Not done away as in it's never going to be. But even the feast days will come back. They're going to come back when we get back into the land and everything. So we got to know what Shaul is saying here. And he's going to tell you what he's saying. So that's what this lesson is going to be about. Did Shaul do away with Yah's laws? Part 1. That's where we're going to start at. So, to get started here, we're going to go and we'll look at something that Peter said, because Peter gives you a great warning. So we're going to look at what Keeper said, and then from what Keeper says, now Keeper is Peter. Shimon actually is his name. We just call him by his surname, the name that the Messiah gave him, the Rock. We're going to look at what he says. So let's go to 2 Peter 3, chapter 3, we're going to read verses 15 and 16. 2 Keeper, chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. Because people always want to put all this blame on Shaul. Oh, Shaul is the Antichrist. Shaul is the false prophet. Shaul's writings, he's teaching against the law. No, he's not. No, he's not. You got to understand what this brother is saying and who he was teaching. So we're going to go here, we're going to get going here, and Shabbat Shalom to everybody that has entered the room. Welcome to Yah and Yahushua are real, the online assembly of Israelite Heritage Organization. Today's lesson is entitled, Did Shaul Do Away with Yah's Laws? And we're just beginning. This lesson is at the start. So welcome everybody. We're going to kick it off with 2 Peter, 2 Keeper, chapter 3, verses 15 through 16. We're going to see this warning that Keeper gave concerning Shaul's writings. And this is critical. This is why Christians can't understand nothing that Shaul is saying or nothing that he has written. 2 Keeper, chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. This is what it says. I'm reading from the translation called the Scriptures, chapter 15. Verse 15, I'm sorry. 2 Peter chapter 3, verse 14. I'm sorry. 14, wait a minute. I want to go to, 15, I'm sorry. We're going to start at 15. 15 and 16. 15 and 16. 2 Peter chapter 3, verses 15 and 16. Here we go. It says, and reckon the patience of our master as deliverance, as also our beloved brother Shaul wrote to you, according to the wisdom given to him. Verse 16. As also in all his letters, speaking in them concerning these matters, in which some are hard to understand, which those who are untaught and unstable twist to their own destruction, as they do also the other scriptures. You see that? He said that Shaul writes in all his letters on these matters in which are some are hard to understand. Of course they're hard to understand if you don't have understanding, because he said those who are untaught and unstable twist to their own destruction as they do the other scriptures. You see what he's saying here? He said that they twist in Shaul's letters like they twist the other scriptures. That's why you have people running around talking about Shaul was teaching against the law, because they don't understand. It's hard for somebody to understand what Shaul is saying if they don't understand the scriptures themselves. So this is an excellent warning from our brother Kepha about our brother Shaul. So now let's look at this. Who was Shaul? Let's look at some very interesting things about this emissary by the name of Shaul. Because he was not one of the original 12 apostles or emissaries that was handpicked by the Messiah. He was not one of the original 12. Shaul came along much later, but if you were in Christianity, you would have thought that Shaul was one of the 12, but not only one of the 12, you would have thought that he was Yahushua. The way they twist his writings. But do you see how Kepha said they twist Shaul letters the same way they twist the other scriptures? You got Israelites that twist the scriptures, that twist Shaul's writings. I'm talking Israelites that know they're Israelites, and especially those Israelites that are serving the gods of Christianity. They twist Shaul's writings. That's all they, you try to tell them something, hey, we have to keep the law. The prophet said it, the Torah said it, the Messiah said it, but then they'll take you to something Paul said. And say, see, this proves. You don't even understand what this man is talking about. There was not one apostle, one emissary that ever made a claim that we don't have to keep the law. And I'm talking about the law unto salvation, the 10 commandments, the dietary law, and all these things. Things like the sacrificial law. That's on hold. The feast days on hold until we are brought back into a greater presence with Yah. But all the other stuff is still there. It's not done away with. It's still there. You still have to keep the dietary law. The laws of clean and unclean. The 10 commandments and so forth and so on. So when Shaul was speaking to these Gentiles and these Hebrew mixed congregations up in Europe, he had already taught them what they're supposed to be doing. And when you get into the book of Galatians, and Shaul tells you in Galatians, when he first starts off, he tells you, who brought you this false good news? Who has brought you another good news? So Shaul goes throughout the book of Galatians to explain to the Galatians over again just what the true good news is. That's what he's talking about. Things he had already taught them, because the Galatians and those Europeans were still one foot in, one foot out. They loved hearing the word of God, but they still were surrounded by that paganism that was part of their culture. And they were still having a problem leaving that paganism and coming fully to Yah, just as we Israelites still have a problem doing today. So this is what Shaul was teaching. These writings of Shaul is nothing but letters. They are letters, like we write emails to each other. That's all they were. They're not scripture per se, as the Torah is scripture. They're just letters. And I know that Yah has allowed his letters to be in here for a purpose and reason. So we can see how the apostles carried out the work. So we can do likewise. Let's look at who was Shaul. Before we go into what he taught, let's look at who was Shaul. Who was Shaul? Let's go to Acts chapter 7. I'm going to read verse 58. We're going to get our first hearing of this brother Shaul. Who is he? Let's go to Acts chapter 7, verse 58. Acts chapter 7. In this chapter, the emissary Philip, I mean not Philip, the emissary Stephanos was being stoned here, because you had these false Hebrews bringing charges against Stephanos, as they bring charges against us in this day, saying that Stephanos was teaching against the law, saying Stephanos was teaching against Moses, saying Stephanos was teaching about Yahushua and things like that. So they brought up charges against him, and Stephanos was being stoned. While the emissary Stephanos was being stoned, we're going to see who was right there at the stoning. And we're going to see who Shaul was from the beginning. All right, let's go to Acts chapter 7, verse 58. It says this. This is after they had stoned Stephanos. It says, and threw him out of the city and stoned him. And the witnesses laid down their garments at the feet of a young man named Shaul. So those who were there at the stoning of Stephanos, they got, they took off their coats, so they can get a longer arm stretch, I guess. They can throw that brick a little harder. They all took off their garments and laid it at the foot of Shaul. Shaul was there watching this emissary Stephanos get stoned to death because he was teaching this messianic belief. So Shaul was part of that crowd. Let's go to Acts chapter 8. Acts chapter 8, we're going to read verses 1 through 3. And out for the posting, Naki. Acts chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. Webcams are welcome in this room. If you have a webcam, don't hesitate. Don't be afraid to turn it on. Turn it on, turn it on. All right, we're going to go to Acts chapter 8, verses 1 through 3. Now, we just saw in Acts chapter 7, Shaul was there at the stoning of Stephanos. He was right there. But look at this. As Acts chapter 7 continues in Acts chapter 8, the same story that we're talking about, the stoning of Stephanos in Acts chapter 7, we're going to pick it up here in Acts chapter 8, verse 1. It says, and Shaul was giving approval to his death. And on that day there was a great persecution against the assembly, which was at Jerusalem. And they were all scattered throughout the countries of Yehuda and Samaria, except the emissaries. So Shaul was giving approval to his death. Verse 2. And dedicated men buried Stephanos and made great lamentation over him. Verse 3. But Shaul was ravaging the assembly, entering every house and dragging off men and women putting them in prison. So Shaul was going to arrest people, messianic believers. Why? Because they believed in Messiah. They believed in Yahushua, and Shaul was persecuting the brethren. This is who this man was. He started persecuting first. Before he became a messianic believer, he persecuted the believers. And he gave approval to them killing Stephanos, and he was ravaging, it says, the assembly. Deep. All right, let's go to Acts chapter 9. Acts chapter 9, verses 1 and 2. Look at who Shaul was. We got to see who he was, and then we'll know, and we get a greater understanding of who he became. Because I know when we were in Christianity, when we was in Islam, when we were not knowing who Yah was, we were the same type of person. I mean, we didn't go to the extreme as dragging off people, putting them in prison. I guess we didn't. Some of us probably did, but we were that type of person. Meaning that when people tried to bring truth to us, hey, truth probably was trying to bring it to you several times, and you probably just flat out rejected it because you were under that same spirit that Shaul was under. You didn't want to hear that. So in Acts chapter 9, verses 1, it says, but Shaul, still breathing threats and murder against the taught ones of the master, having come to the high priest, asked from him letters to the congregations of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, to bring them bound to Jerusalem. So he said, hey, let me go up to Damascus. Let me go in and kick down their doors. And let me drag them off. Let me bring them before you. Look at that. He said, whether men or women, he didn't care. If you said that you served Yah through Yahushua HaMashiach, and Shaul heard you, he was persecuting you. Y'all understand what this brother was doing, and then where he came from and what he came to be. What he came to be. Now notice that he said that he found any who were of the way. The way was the name of the movement of that day. That was the organization. That was the organizing that Yah had placed in their hand. That was the name of the organized work that the brothers were doing. They called it the way, which is short for Yah's way, or the ways of Yah. That's where you even get the name Yahweh from. Yah's way. Damn, Yah's way. So let's look at another very interesting thing about Shaul. Now, Shaul was an Israelite. He's going to tell us that. But Shaul belonged to one of the organizations that existed in that day. One of the organizations that was against Yah, but thought that they were not against Yah. But because they had so much garbage that they had put into the truth and understanding of Yah, man, let's see what else Shaul was a part of, y'all. Let's go to Philippians chapter 3, verse 5. Philippians chapter 3, verse 5. So we're going to see something else about Shaul. So we got to lay the foundation about who this Ak was, where like I say, where he came from and what he became, and just what he did in between. So this is Shaul speaking to the Philippians in chapter 3, verse 5. This is after he made his conversion. Now he's Shaul the servant, where he was Shaul the persecutor before. He says, circumcise the 8th day of the race or the nation of Israel of the tribe of Benjamin, a Hebrew of Hebrews, according to Torah, a Pharisee. Shaul was part of the Pharisees. Let's go to Acts chapter 23, verse 6. He was a Pharisee. He was of that organization. Remember, the Pharisees were not a race or a nationality of people. It was just an Israelite organization that existed during the time of Yahushua. We know the many battles that Yahushua had against the scribes and Pharisees, and he defeated them every time, demolished them every time. So Shaul said he was circumcised the 8th day, which is part of the law. He said the nationality of Israel of the tribe of Benjamin. So Shaul was an Israelite from the tribe of Benjamin. During Shaul's time, during Yahushua's time, the tribes that existed, the known tribes that existed in Israel, was the tribe of Yehuda, Judah, was the tribe of Benjamin, and Levi. So those were the tribes that remained intact during the time of Yahushua. So he said that I'm a Hebrew of Hebrews, according to Torah, a Pharisee. Let's go to Acts chapter 23, verse 6. So we just picking up here, we seeing that Shaul was an Israelite, was of the tribe of Benjamin, he was a persecutor of the brethren, and he was a Pharisee. All right, Acts 23, 6. Now Shaul, perceiving that one part was Sadducees and the other Pharisees, cried out in the council, Men, brothers, I am a Pharisee, the son of a Pharisee. I am being judged concerning the expectation and resurrection of the dead. So the reason Shaul had to blur this out to them because they was accusing him of not keeping the law, as he's still being accused of this day. Who were the Pharisees, asking the coaches? Shaul said that I am a Pharisee. He was of this organization called the Pharisees. Who were the Pharisees? Let's go to Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. We got to break down Shaul's origins first, and then we're going to get into some of the things that he taught. Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. But when he came into the truth, he was no longer a Pharisee, because he was no longer a part of that organization doctrine, that organization teaching. Is Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. We got to break down Shaul's origins first, and then we're going to get into some of the things that he taught. Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 and 2. But when he came into the truth, he was no longer a Pharisee, because he was no longer a part of that organization doctrine, that organization teaching. Matthew 23, verses 1. Then Yahushua spoke to the crowds and to all his taught ones. Verse 2, saying, the scribes and Pharisees sit on the seat of Moses. The scribes and Pharisees sit on the seat of Moses. The scribes were the religious leaders of that day. They were a religious organization, and the Pharisees, if I said scribe, the Pharisees were the religious organization of that day. We're a religious organization, not the only one. And the scribes were the ones that was responsible for translating scripture and writing down scripture and just writing things. That's what the scribe does. He writes things. So Yahushua said that they sit on the seat of Moses. What does it mean to sit on the seat of Moses? Who was Moses? Moses was a servant of Yah who, by the inspiration of Yah, gave the children of Israel the Torah, gave the children of Israel the law. Moses was a Torah teacher. He was a law teacher. So when Yahushua said that the Pharisees are sitting on the seat of Moses, Yahushua saying that the Pharisees are teachers of the law. But the Pharisees, they taught the law, but they did something else in their personal lives. They were hypocrites. They would tell you what you're not supposed to do, but they themselves did not do it. So Yahushua will tell you in the next verse not to even do as they do. But the Pharisees is a organization. They were law teachers of the law. So when it says that Shaul said, I am a Pharisee, he's telling you that he's teaching the law. He was of that organization. That's where he came from. And nowhere else does Shaul speak against that he stopped teaching the law. Now he has a greater understanding of the law through Yahushua HaMashiach. He was teaching the law as a Pharisee taught it, without the spiritual understanding, as Yahushua came to fulfill the spiritual understanding, because Yahushua was living Torah. So the Pharisees could not comprehend. They were stuck on the physical. Shaul could not comprehend. That's why he persecuted the brethren when he was in that Pharisee doctrine. But when he came out of it and he saw Mashiach, then he became a greater servant. He became a servant for the Most High Yah, through Yahushua HaMashiach. Cain, that's what the Pharisees do, put heavy burdens. Let's look at what Shaul told. Shaul, the law keeper. Let's go to Acts chapter 24, verse 14. Acts chapter 24, verse 14. Shaul kept the law. Even after he had his awakening, Shaul was not a Christian. That's a lie. Anybody ever tell you that he's a Christian, he's the founder of Christian, he was the great prophet of Christianity? That's a bold-faced lie, and it's coming straight from the adversary. Rebuke it early, and you better rebuke it sharply. Correct them on that. No, Shaul was not a Christian. If he was alive today, he would be, and if he was in this room, some of you talk about that you don't like how Aki Tobiah speak to you. Oh, none of y'all would come in here if Shaul was up here talking to you. You know? You'd be, no, I ain't going over there. They got that screaming brother over there. Shaul put it down. He had to get bold because of the things that he experienced. He was a man that was on both sides of the fence. He knew what it was like to persecute others. He knew what that persecution was like because he was the head leader of it. So he knew how he had to get bold with these Hebrews. He knew when he was under that spirit, how he wasn't hearing nothing else, and how he had this strong hatred for those who were serving Yah through Yahushua HaMashiach. So he knew the boldness that he had to exhibit, but yet he would just bring you truth. That's all he ever brought you, just like any other servant of Yah, bringing you that truth. Cain, you gotta bring that fire, because Israel get to the point where if you don't bring that Yah fearing fire, you're gonna mess around and get into a fist fight with these folk. That's what Israel do to you. You see how angry they made the most meekest man in the world. Scripture says Moses was the most meekest. And they got him so angry that he disobeyed Yah. Struck the rock out of his anger because of these stiff necks. These are the same stiff necks that Yah said, I am slow to anger, but he says Israel makes me angry continually. The same people. So you gotta understand how to come to Israel. You gotta understand the boldness you have to have, but at the same time you gotta be meek. You still gotta be humble, but you gotta be bold, meaning you don't back down. As Yah told the prophet Yazekiel, don't be afraid of their looks. Their looks can cut you up, but don't you back down from delivering my word to them. That's how we have to do. Now look at what Shaul is saying here. He said in Acts 24, verse 14, and this I confess to you, that according to the way which they call a sect. Now the way, once again, the name of the movement, the organized work of that day was called the way. It's short for Yah's way, or the ways of Yah. All right, it says, so I worship Yah of my fathers. Look at that. He said he worshiped Yah of his fathers, believing all that has been written in the Torah and in the prophets. In Shaul's day, there was no such thing called a New Testament. He said, I believe all that has been written in the Torah. The Torah is the first 5 books of the Bible. It's the Hebrew word for instruction or law. He said, I believe in it all. And the prophets. He said he worshiped Yah, the same Yah of his fathers. Who is his father? The Israelites. Moses is his father. King David is his father. You understand? Of his people. He worshiped that same Yah. Christians don't worship Yah. So Shaul is letting you know, I believe in what they call the Old Testament. Christians don't believe in the Old Testament. They don't believe in the Torah and the prophets. They tell you that that's been done away with. You don't have to read that. So Shaul is not a Christian. He's not on par with that. And we know that Christians are the biggest, lawless religion in the world. The greatest of the lawless religions. Christianity is the leader. So Shaul said, I worship Yah, and I believe all that has been written in the Torah and the prophets. That's the same thing we saying, don't we? Don't we? We worship Yah and we believe in the Old Testament. We believe in the Torah and the prophets. We promote the Torah and the prophets. We teach Torah and prophets. That's the same understanding we have. Let's continue. Let's go to Acts 25, verses 7 through 8. Acts 25, verses 7 through 8. Now, this don't sound like a man who said that he believed in Yah and he believed all that's written. This don't sound like a man that's trying to do away with the law. It could have been easily for him to say, I don't worship Yah, All right, Acts chapter 25, verses 7 and 8. It says, and when he had come, the Israelites had come down from Jerusalem, stood about, bringing many and heavy charges against Shaul, which they were unable to prove. That's how Israelites do. Those wicked Israelites got a whole list of charges they try to weld at you, but they can't prove one thing. They're always making accusations against you, but never can prove it. Unable to prove it. Man, it says in verse 8, while Shaul said in his own defense, neither against the Torah of the Israelites, nor against the set-apart place, nor against Caesar did I commit any sin. He said, I didn't speak against the Torah. I didn't create sin against the Torah. Remember, sin is the transgression of the law. So Shaul is telling you, I didn't come against the Torah. Why would he come against the Torah? Because he believes in Torah. It wouldn't make sense if a man who believes in Torah to come against Torah. So he's saying, I believe in the law. That's what Torah is, brothers and sisters. First 5 books of the Bible. That's where the laws of Yah is found. The first 5 books. And so he's saying this, I believe in it. I didn't sin this. I didn't come against the set-apart place. Nor even did I come against Caesar. Because that's how servants of Yah have to be. We have to be blameless. So those other stiff-necks can't throw blame at us, and neither can those wild Gentiles throw blame at us. So we don't break the laws of the land, and we don't break Yah's laws. So this is what Shaul is saying. Neither against the Torah of the Israelites, nor against the set-apart place, nor against Caesar did I commit any sin. That's beautiful. Let's go to Acts chapter 18, verse 21. Al-Ak Shaul, even when he kept the feast days, he kept them according to the law. Now remember, this is when all this we're reading is when Shaul is righteous. He's coming into righteousness, right? He's a righteous man. He found Yahushua. Yahushua, came to him, and this is after Yahushua had ascended up to heaven, and Yahushua spoke to Shaul from heaven and made him his emissary. So look at this, Acts chapter 18, verse 21. It says, but took leave of them, saying, I have to keep this coming feast in Yerushalayim by all means. But I shall come back to you, Yah willing, or Yah desiring so. And he sailed from Ephesus. So Shaul is saying, I have to keep this feast that's coming in Yerushalayim by all means. Shaul was keeping law here. This is Shaul speaking in Acts chapter 18. He was keeping the law, because that's where the feast days were to be kept. Let's show that. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 16. Deuteronomy 16:16. Shaul was keeping law. That's right. That's how the days were to be kept. He said, I have to keep this feast by all means. I got to get out of here. I got to go, because he was a law keeper. He told us in Acts 24, I believe in the Torah. In Acts 25, I have not sinned against Torah. Torah is the law. So for a man to have the charge of throwing the law away, man, I don't see it. But let's continue. You know, they making all these things, and just like in his day, Acts 25:7 said that they were making charges against him which they were unable to prove. The same in this day. Those who speak against Shaul is unable to prove that he's a false prophet. They're unable to prove that he spoke against the law. So you got this foundation right here. So everything that proceeds from this point on out. Yeah, Shaul said, I believe in Torah. Shaul said, I didn't sin against Torah. We see that Shaul was getting back to Yerushalayim to keep a feast day. That's keeping law. So you got to look at the foundation, because by the time you get through with this, and when you get to the book of Galatians, and when you can read some of the other letters, you'll know what he's saying here. He's not saying that you don't have to keep law anymore. You got to understand which law is he talking about. How many of y'all are out there sacrificing chickens, or cows, or bulls, or goats and sheep for your sins? Who's out there doing that? But that was part of the law, right? Why aren't you doing that today? Because you have Yahushua. That's what Shaul was teaching. Because see, the Galatians, the Philippians, the Corinthians, they were still surrounded by these Gentiles who were still doing those things, still sacrificing, as they still do today in certain segments of certain religions. They still have animal sacrifice. And Shaul was seeing these European people whom he had taught, and there was a mixture of Europeans and Hebrews in those congregations. So Shaul was seeing these things, and that's what he told them. That law is no more. But does that mean that you can go out and freely sin because you don't have to slaughter bulls and goats and all that anymore? Yah forbid. Yah forbid. Okay, now that's exactly what abortion is, sacrificing to their gods. That's absolutely right. Still giving over to Molech, El Mo. So right here in Deuteronomy 16:16, this is what Shaul was keeping. He says, this is what Yah says, 3 times a year all your males appear before Yah in the place which he chooses, at the feast of unleavened bread, and at the feast of weeks, and at the festival of booths, and none shall appear before Yah empty-handed. Shaul was following these laws right here in Deuteronomy 16. Deuteronomy is one of the books of the Torah. In fact, it's number 5 in the books of the Torah. Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, and Deuteronomy. 5 books of Torah. And so this is the 5th book. So Shaul was following this law right here. Coming back to Jerusalem for the feast. If you want to know more about the feast, we have a lesson on the website, www.HebrewIsraelites.org. We have an audio lesson. We have 2 written lessons. We have actually 2 audio lessons on there about the Passover and about the feast day. So if you want to have more understanding of Deuteronomy 16:16, please listen to those lessons. Go to the website and you can see those lessons and listen to it. But Shaul was following the law here. He had to get back to Jerusalem to keep that feast, because Deuteronomy 16:16 said that this is where we had to do it. In the place Yah chose is the place's name. That place was Jerusalem, Yerushalayim. And as you can see, you go to Second Chronicles, chapter 7, I believe it is, verse 16, I'm believing. And 2 Chronicles chapter 6, verse 6. Yah tells you that he chose the temple, and he chose Yerushalayim, or Jerusalem, as the place to put his name. I think that's 2 Chronicles 7, start at the 14th verse. 14, 15, and 16, one of those verses where Yah said, I have chosen the temple and I have chosen Jerusalem. So that's what Shaul was doing. All right, he was keeping the law. He was a law keeper. He didn't speak against the law. He didn't speak against Torah. Shaul taught to keep Torah. Let's go to Romans chapter 2. Romans chapter 2, and you know what? This lesson is going to be shorter than what I actually thought. So this is just, part 1. And I was going to put part 2 in here, but I didn't want, because we're going to read entire chapters in the book of Galatians. So we're going to just go ahead and keep that as part 2. And so we're just, we got a few scriptures here. And I don't know, we'll see. Romans chapter 2, verses 12 through 29. Romans chapter 2, verses 12 through 29. Now, a person that is anti-Torah, that is anti-Yah, y'all heard those people speak before. I want to, when we read these writings of Shaul right here, right now, I want you to search down in your heart of hearts and you ask yourself, does this sound like a person that's trying to do away with the law? Does this sound like a person that's trying to get me not to keep law? Because you know what that sounds like. Many of you was that person. Like I said earlier, you've been in Christianity. You know what it's like to teach against the law. You know what it's like not to serve Yah. You know what it's like not to keep the law. So we're going to listen and we're going to see, is this what Shaul is saying? You know what a sermon sound like, and you know what an Israelite teaching sound like. You know the difference between the two, because an Israelite teaching is going to teach you. A sermon is going to rob you. So you listen to what the brother is saying here, and you make your mind up. We go into Romans chapter 2, verses 12 through 29. Romans chapter 2, verses 12 through 29. It says, for as many as sinned without Torah shall also perish without Torah. Now remember what sin is, brothers and sisters. Sin is the transgression of the law, according to 1 John chapter 3, verse 4. Sin is the transgression of the law. Sin equals lawlessness without law. So he said, for as many as who has transgressed the law without the law shall also perish without the law. And as many as sin in the Torah shall be judged by the Torah. So whether you a sinner or whether you even a righteous person, Torah is still going to be your judge. Yah's going to judge you on everything according to Torah. That's why Keeper tells you that the righteous are going to barely make it in. And you're going to barely make it in by the skin of your teeth, because Yah's going to have mercy, because Yah see that you were striving. But there's so much of the law that we just have to keep even in our minds, because that's where it starts. The mind represents the spiritual. So we go right here, verse 13. For not the hearers of Torah are righteous in the sight of Yah, but the doers of the law shall be declared right. Now wait a minute. For a man to have getting the marker of being anti-law, anti-Yah, this man is telling you the doers of the law shall be declared right. Now he was a Pharisee. The Pharisees spoke the law, but they didn't do the law. Shaul was one of them. Doesn't the law say, thou shalt not murder, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not bear false witness against your neighbor? Shaul was doing all of that. But he was a Pharisee, and the Pharisees were deemed the righteous men of that day. But he's telling you, because he's been there and he know what he's talking about here, but the doers of the law shall be declared right. So if you hear, thou shalt not fornicate, thou shalt not steal, but yet you go out and you steal and you fornicate, how are you to be declared right when you're a sinner, when you're breaking the law? That's what this man is talking about here. Same stuff we teach in here. Let's go on, it gets deeper. Verse 14. For when Gentiles who do not have the law or the Torah by nature do what is in the Torah, although not having the Torah, they are a law to themselves. So he's saying that you have righteous Gentiles out there that have righteous hearts and don't even comprehend that they're doing the righteousness of Yah. You know why? Because they have not been taught what the righteousness of Yah is. So they become a law to themselves. They don't become a law to Yah's law, but they become a law to themselves. In order for you to do right by Yah, you have to know the Father. But the Father will have mercy upon people like that. Because you know what? Many of us we were in that same category. We were doing right things. We were doing righteousness. We treated people good because we had good hearts, but we didn't know that we was doing it according to the law. But Yah saw it, and Yah knew it, and then Yah introduced himself, saying, hey, this is me. You're doing what I need you to do. Now, this is what I need you to continue doing. And you know what? We said, Father, I'm with you. Just let me know. And we got understanding. And so now we have a law. We are doing the laws of Yah. We're no longer doing a law to ourselves, according to how we feel about certain things. Because there's still much room for error when we're doing our own way, even if you're doing it, quote unquote, righteously. But if it's your own way, there's room for error. But if you do righteously and you do it by Yah, according to Yah's Torah, and you know that this is coming from Yah's Torah, then it's a different story. Then you got a better chance of just being, right all the time. 15. Who show the work of the Torah written in their hearts, their conscience also bearing witness, and between themselves their thoughts accusing or even excusing. Now, Shaul has mentioned a lot about Torah here, but I haven't seen him say one time that you don't have to keep Torah. Let's continue. 16. In the day when Yah shall judge the secrets of men's thought, Yahoshua HaMashiach, Yahoshua the Messiah, according to my good news. See, you are called a Yehudite or an Israelite, and rest on the Torah and make your boast in Yah. Verse 18. Hold on 1 second here. One second. Okay, here we go. Verse 18. And know the desire of Yah and approve what is superior, being instructed out of the law, being instructed out of the Torah. You see that? Know the desires of Yah. Know what Yah desires and require of you, and approve what is superior, being instructed out of the Torah. The Torah is our instruction. That's what it means. It means instruction and law. That's what the laws of Yah can be found in the first 5 books. And it was Moses, by the inspiration of the Almighty Father Yah, that delivered this truth to the children of Israel. I'm waiting to see an anti-Torah man here. He just spoke, because I've been in the midst of people who hate the Torah, and I know what that's like. I'm not seeing it yet. I'm not seeing it here. All right, in verse 19. And are trusting that you yourself are a guide to the blind, a light to those who are in darkness. If you're living without Yah's truth, then you are in darkness. Yah's truth is the light. So it says that are trusting that you yourself are a guide to the blind. The blind he's talking about are those that are in the darkness, those that live without Torah, those that live without the knowledge of Yah's laws, Yah's righteousness. That's what darkness is. Verse 20. An instructor of foolish ones, a teacher of babes, having the form of knowledge and of the truth in the Torah. Verse 21. You then who teach another, do you not teach yourself? You who proclaim that a man should not steal, do you steal? You who say adultery, do you commit adultery? You who abominate idols, do you rob temples? You who make your boast in the Torah, through the transgressions of the Torah, do you disrespect Yah? So do you see that? So you see what he just said? He's speaking of that Pharisee understanding. When you teach this truth, you're also teaching yourself. What I'm giving you, when I give you these lessons, words of the week, whatever, myself is included in that. When we learn these things, we're learning this together. We teach ourselves. So he's saying, you who proclaim that a man should not steal, do you steal? Because remember, Yahushua tells you in Matthew chapter 23, in verse 3, that the Pharisees listen to what they say, but don't do as they do, because they say one thing and they do another. They are hypocrites. So this is what Shaul is speaking about here. And he's speaking of the commandments. The commandments tell us not to steal. The commandments teach us not to commit adultery. The commandments tell us not to bow down to idols. Do you boast in the Torah? Though you transgress of the Torah, do you disrespect Yah? Yes, you disrespect Yah when you're out here false flagging. And this is what Shaul is talking about. He's talking about be real in the law. Be real in Torah. The name of Yah is blasphemed among the Gentiles because of you, as it has been written. So you are the people of Yah. And so when you go out here, you got Yah's name on you. You represent him in every waking moment. How are you going to tell somebody about Yah and when you're not living for Yah? How are you going to tell somebody not to steal and you're the biggest thief? How are you going to tell somebody not to commit, not to bow down to idols and you're the biggest idol worshiper? Can that be heard? All right, Todah. All right, so this is what Shaul is teaching here. Let's go to verse 25. We'll go all the way down to 29. Verse 25. He says this: for circumcision indeed profits if you practice the Torah. But if you are a transgressor of the Torah, your circumcision has become uncircumcision. Woo! That's what I'm saying, Oxen and Coaties. He's talking about these false flaggers right here. He's saying, what good is it for a man to be circumcised? Because Torah tells us to be circumcised in Genesis chapter 17, as Yah's telling us that this is a token of the covenant that he has made with us, starting with our father Abraham. So Shaul is saying, what if you get circumcised, right? So if you he said, if you get circumcised, it indeed profit if you practice Torah, if you're following Torah. But if you are a transgressor of the law, if you're a sinner, your circumcision has become uncircumcised. So you're just like an uncircumcised Gentile if you are transgressing the law. See, he's speaking against transgressing Torah. He's speaking against sin. He's speaking against breaking Yah's law. Do y'all see that? Or am I just making up something here? Or are we reading the same book? You know, do you have the super duper Bible that only you can read, and that super duper, smart Hebrew, and it's saying something else? Because for you to get a doctrine to say that this man, Shaul, is teaching against the law, you got to have some type of Bible, other Bible. When this man is saying, don't break the law, teaching against it, teaching against you transgressing. So he says in verse 26. It's right, plain and simple. Verse 26. So if an uncircumcised one watches over the righteousness of the Torah, shall not his uncircumcision be reckoned as circumcision? And the uncircumcised by nature who perfects the Torah shall judge you, who notwithstanding letter and circumcision are a transgression of the Torah. Speaking to you stiff-necked Hebrews. If an uncircumcised one watches over the righteousness of Torah, the uncircumcised one in flesh is doing the righteousness of Torah, shall not his uncircumcised be reckoned as circumcision? So he's doing Torah, So when he's talking about an uncircumcised, he's really talking about, this is what they call the Gentiles. We call the Gentiles the uncircumcised for the reason that they were uncircumcised. Circumcision was a token between us and Yah. We were not the only nation to circumcise. The Egyptians did it and others circumcised. But the Gentiles, and they always love to run around naked, and show their uncircumcised. So that's what we call them, the uncircumcised. And we knew that wildness that they had in them. So when he talks about if an uncircumcised one watches over the righteousness of the Torah, so if an uncircumcised Gentile, that's how we looked at them. Like today, we call wild Gentiles and all that. So he's saying if one of the Gentiles who watches over the righteousness of the Torah, shall his uncircumcision be reckoned as circumcision? Because we thought that, hey, Gentiles can't come into this. The same spirit that existed in that day when the righteous servants of Yah had to fight against it is the same one that exists in this day when the righteous servants of Yah still have to fight against the same spirit. Oh, the Gentiles can't get salvation. Oh, blah, 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 blee, 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 same thing. All right, but verse 27 again. And the uncircumcised by by nature, who perfects the Torah, shall judge you, who notwithstanding letter and circumcision are a transgression of the Torah. So we got these wicked Hebrews out here, and uncircumcised by nature, because it was not the nature of the Gentiles to be circumcised, but if he comes into the truth and perfects the law, he lives the Torah perfectly, meaning that he's going to get circumcised, in the flesh. So he said, who perfects the Torah shall judge you. So Shaul is not saying that do away with Torah here. He said perfects the Torah. Verse 28, I'm sorry. For he is not an Israelite who is so outwardly, neither is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh. So he's not saying that you don't have to be circumcised. He's giving you the spiritual understanding here. This is what Shaul is giving you. For an Israelite who is so outwardly, and fleshly Israelites, the ISUPK, the Great Millstone, and all these other groups who are out here cussing out folk on the street, just not represent Yah, right? But they're Israelites according to the flesh. He said, neither is circumcision that which is outward in the flesh. So they can be Israelites, they can be circumcised, but yet if their hearts are uncircumcised, they're not going to be counted worthy for the kingdom. The kingdom is made for the children of Israel, but if you are not circumcised in your heart, you're not worthy of the kingdom. This is what Shaul is talking about. So those Gentiles who are watching over Torah, who are serving Yah, will be in the kingdom, and you for whom the kingdom was made will be outside of the kingdom with gnashing teeth, terrified. Verse 29. But an Israelite is he who is so inwardly, cleanse your heart, and circumcision is that of the heart, in spirit, not literally, whose practice is not from men, but from Yah. So when you have a circumcision spiritually, meaning your mind can comprehend Yah's truth. Your heart has been cleansed, your soul has been cleansed. And you know how to praise the Father. Saying the exact same thing, huh? He's saying the exact same thing. So this is what we're saying. Everybody, we know who the physical children of Israel are. It's still important to know who the Israelites are, because as Shaul tell you, he was an Israelite. He's from the tribe of Benjamin. We're still the servants of Yah. We still get first shot at everything because Yah made the covenant with us. We still will be cursed if we don't come to our end of the covenant. But yet, to be that Israelite that makes the kingdom, to be that Israelite that is deemed righteous by Yah, to be that Israelite that will make it in the remnant, you have to have your heart circumcised. Have to have your mind clear so it can receive the understanding of Yah. So Shaul is talking to these anti-wicked Hebrews, anti-Torah, anti-Yah, wicked Hebrews. He was not counted among them. He's telling them, you got to keep Torah. The law is righteous. Let's go to Romans chapter 7. The book of Romans is heavy, y'all. It's heavy. Got some good stuff in here. So we're going to hit this up. Romans chapter 7. We're going to read the entire chapter. Romans chapter 7. We're going to read all 25 verses. Romans chapter 7, verse 1. Or do you not know, brothers, for I speak to those knowing the Torah, that the Torah rules over a man as long as he lives. You see that? He said, I speak to those knowing the Torah. So he's not speaking to you anti-Torah people, as Shaul as Kepha told us, as we started out with Kepha, Kepha chapter 3, verses 15 to 16. Shaul's writings are hard to understand by those who twist the scripture to their own destruction. So Shaul said, I'm speaking to those that know the Torah. There you go, non-messianic maniacs. So he's not speaking to anti-Torah. He's not speaking to lawbreakers here. He's not speaking to you, Christian. He said, I speak to those knowing the Torah, that the Torah rules over a man as long as he lives. Wow, that don't sound like an anti-Torah person to me. Let's look at verse 2. For the married woman has been bound by Torah to the living husband. But if the husband dies, she is released from the Torah concerning her husband. Verse 3. So then, while her husband lives, she shall be called an adulteress if she becomes another man's. But if her husband dies, she is free from that part of the Torah, so that she is not an adulteress having become another man's. Now, let me just explain this real quick, because some of you probably, get caught up right here. What is he saying? Is he saying that, if you listen to our lesson called Marriage, Divorce, Remarriage, it's on the website. What he's saying here, he said, for the married woman has been bound by the law to the living husband. So if the married woman is still married to the husband, but if a certificate of divorce has been given, she's no longer married to him, and that is nullified. Remember, to be divorced, a certificate of divorce must be given. So that's what Shaul is talking about, because he's speaking about that if there was not a certificate of divorce given, then she's still connected, and that man is still connected to her. So that's what he's talking about. That's what he's talking about of the Torah, and we got that in the lesson. We went through the entire lesson with that. Verse 4, he says, so my brothers, you also were put to death to the Torah through the body of Messiah, for you to become another's, the one who was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to Yah. For when we were in the flesh, the passions of sin through the Torah were working in our members to bear fruit to death. Verse 6. But now we have been released from the Torah, I'm going to explain that, having died to what we were held by, so that we should serve in newness of spirit and not in oldness of letter. So he's just talking about the spiritual understanding. Even when those who were keeping the law but did not have the spiritual understanding, they were just doing it just to say that they're doing it. But when we came to the body of Mashiach, we became another's. The one who was raised from the dead, that we should bear fruit to Yah. So Yahushua came to bring the complete understanding of the law. Now we know how to do the law, and we know how to do it righteously. So he says that, for when we were in the flesh, the passions of sins through the Torah were working in our members to bear fruit to death. When we were in the flesh, had Shaul continued in the way, remember, he was keeping Torah, right? Had Shaul, he was a Pharisee. Had he kept in that way, even though he was keeping Torah, but he was persecuting the brothers and doing just what he wanted to do, he would have died the second death. But since Mashiach has come to give us greater understanding of what the law means and how to better perfect our walks, we're released from that old way. Now we have a new way. Now we have a new understanding. Verse 7. What then shall we say? Is the Torah sin? Let it not be. Look at that. He's not speaking against Torah. He said, so we say that the Torah is sin, is that the law is sin? Let it not be. However, I did not know sin except through the law. For also the covetousness I knew not, if the Torah had not said, you shall not covet. He said, I didn't even know sin except through the law. I didn't even know what covetousness means unless the scripture told me you should not covet. So he's saying that the law is teaching him, is his instruction. All right, let us continue. Verse 8. But sin, having taken the occasion through the commandment, did work in me all sorts of covetousness. For apart from Torah, sin is dead. So sin equals transgression of the law. So if you have no law, you have no transgression. That's what the Ankh is telling you here. For apart from Torah, sin is dead. So if you have no Torah, you have no sin. If you have no sin, you don't even have a judgment. How can Yah judge you? According to what is his judgment going to be based on if you have no law? What deems a man righteous? What deems a man wicked? Oh, we're going to go into what righteousness is, a scriptural definition. So that's right, you can't get around it. Verse 9. And I was alive apart from the Torah once, but when the commandment came, the sin revived and I died. Verse 10. And the commandment which was to result in life, this I found to result in death. For sin, having taken the occasion through the commandment, deceived me, and through it killed me. Look at that. He said that through the commandment, for sin having taken the occasion through the commandment, deceived me. Shaul was just serving the commandments without serving the Father. He did what the other Pharisees told him to do. He was brought up under the Pharisee Gilgamel, who was mentioned in Acts chapter, I think it's 5 it is, the one that told them not to come against the emissaries, because if the work that they're doing is of Yah, they're going to find themselves fighting against Yah. That's who was Shaul's teacher. So Shaul is telling you, because he was a Pharisee, that he did the commandments, but he didn't understand what he was doing. It was still sin. Some Israelites walk around here and say, well, I don't eat pork because I got high blood pressure. And pork just raises my blood pressure. They don't, I'm talking about Israelites that know they're Israelites. They don't say that I don't eat pork because this is the law and Yah tells us not to. They got an alternate reason. This is what Shaul is saying here. That they were just doing the law, just doing the commandment without even serving Yah through the commandments. But when you come through Yahushua, that's why we need Mashiach, because he's the example of how to do it. How to become a living Torah. How to become, he's the example. So this is what Shaul is breaking down. Verse 12. So the Torah truly is set apart, and the commandments set apart and righteous and good. We can stop the lesson right there. What else can you say about this man after that? The law truly is set apart and the commandments set apart and righteous and good. That don't sound like a lawbreaker to me, y'all. But we got to go on. You still got those. But Obadiyah, he said that. Listen, can you just read right here what he said? Let's continue. Shaul is going to go farther. 13. Therefore, has that which is good become death to me? Let it not be. But the sin, that sin might be manifest, was working death in me through what is good. Look at that. He said that sin was working through him through the Torah, because he was keeping law, but he was doing it according to the ways of the scribes and Pharisees, whom once again, bring back to your remembrance, Matthew chapter 23, Yahushua told us, he said, listen to what they say, the Pharisees. Just don't do as they do. For they say one thing and they do another. They are hypocrites. Shaul is breaking down that whole understanding. The Torah is good, but it was bringing death in me because I was not serving the Father through his law. I was just doing it to say that I'm doing it. He was following after the Pharisees. After that, what he was a part of, that was the only understanding that he had. But Yahushua came, and only through Mashiach are we able to comprehend a spiritual walk. A spiritual understanding, meaning we still have to keep the Torah, but the Torah we have to keep in the heart and in the mind. And what I mean by that is this. As Yahushua tells you in Matthew chapter 5, I believe it's the 34th or the 38th verse, he says this. He says, you have been told thou should not commit adultery. But I'm here to tell you that if a man thinks on a woman, we're talking about a married woman here, he has already committed adultery with her in his heart. That's the understanding he came. That's what Shaul is starting to understand here. That we still have to keep Torah. We still under the law. We would still be judged and reckoned righteous, or we would still be judged and reckoned wickedness by the Torah. All right, so let's continue. No, I'm sorry. Let me read verse 13 again. Therefore has that which is good become death to me? Let it not be. But the sin, that sin might be manifest, was working death in me through what is good, so that sin through the commandments might become an exceedingly great sinner. You know how Satan can even use the commandments against you? Did you not read? Oh yeah, you have read it. Luke chapter 4, Matthew chapter 4, where Satan tried to use scripture against Yahushua. Oh, throw yourself off this high mountain. Did not Yah say he'll send his angels down to get you? Yeah, that's what the book says. But you have to come back with the spiritual understanding of what it means. That's what Shaul is speaking about here. You got to have that higher understanding. Otherwise, you will be a great sinner and running around here talking about that you keeping Torah. This man ain't do away with the law. This is our brother here. Same understanding we got is the same one he had. If Shaul was alive today, he can sit in this class and we can have conversation with him. He'll understand us and we'll understand him. You know, we can talk about the same things. We can talk about, we can break it down and tell him how close we are to the man of sin. We can remind him, hey, don't you remember when you said this in 2 Thessalonians that this was coming? Hey, check this out. This is how close we are to that happening. You know, he'll understand us. But if he was in a Christian congregation, he'll stand up in there and get the, rebuking all that madness. So we can understand what the Ak is talking about here. Verse 14. Now this is understanding. You see that, Obadiyah? This is understanding. Now don't we talk about this all the time? The spiritual, the difference between the spiritual and the physical. Look at what Shaul is saying here in verse 14. For we know, listen to this. For we know this. Christians don't know this. Muslims don't know this. Jews don't know this. For we know that the Torah is spiritual. But I am fleshly, sold under sin. What does it mean to mean Torah is spiritual? That understanding. To understand it is spiritual. The higher understanding, Ox and Akotis. Let's look at something real quick. I'm just going to throw this out here. 3 times a year, you must come to Yerushalayim to keep these feasts. All your males. We understand that. We got the spiritual understanding of that. That's why we don't even attempt to do a feast day if we can't do it the way Yah said to do it. We have a spiritual understanding of what the Father is saying. But what about those that go out here and get their lamb, right? The commandment said we had to have a lamb, right? They go out there and they have their little Passovers, they have their little feast, but it's not according to Yah. So they're actually breaking Torah when they're thinking that they're keeping that commandment. This is what Shaul is talking about right here. That spiritual understanding. Spiritual, we're not talking about spiritual like a Christian talking about spiritual. We're talking about spiritual in the higher understanding that will lead to salvation. That other understanding will lead to eternal death. Let's continue. Verse 15. For what I work, I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice. But what I hate, that I do. But if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah, that is good. If I do what I do not wish, in other words, if I don't do my own thing, I'm in agreement with Torah, and that is good. That's what he's saying here. Don't do your own thing. For what I work, I know not. For what I wish, that I do not practice, but what I hate, that I do. But if I do what I do not wish, I agree with the Torah, that is good. Don't do your own ways. All right, verse 17. And now it is no longer that I work it, but the sin dwelling in me. For I know that in me, that is in my flesh, dwells no good. How many of y'all know that? How many of y'all know that? That the flesh dwells no good. Because the flesh is always battling against the spiritual. The flesh will have you going on the left road when Yah tells you go on the right road. If you are in the spiritual higher understanding, you're going to understand what the Father Yah is giving you. Verse 19. For the good that I wish to do, I do not do. But the evil I do not wish to do, this I practice. He's talking about, there you go, the flesh versus the spirit. The flesh versus the spirit, that's what he's talking about here. The flesh is weak. The flesh wants to do its own thing. The flesh does not want to submit to Yah's Ruach. You know how it is. Some of you all may not feel like getting your flesh up in the morning and just coming to the Shabbat class to listen to the truth of God. Because there's always a battle between the two. So Shaul is saying, hey man, for the good that I wish to do, I do not do. It's a constant struggle, constant battle, all right? But the evil that I do not wish to do, this I practice. You all experience that. You all experience that. You know, it's just a constant struggle. Man, I don't want to do that, but the flesh be pulling you. Flesh be pulling you, all right? Verse 20. It says, and if I do that which I wish not to do, it is no longer I who work it, but the sin dwelling in me. So how do you release the sin dwelling on your heart? Through Torah, brothers and sisters. If you do not know what sin is, you can only know what it is through Torah. And that's the only thing that can remove sin from your life, is your spiritual understanding of the law. Verse 21. I find therefore this law, that when I wish to do the good, that the evil is present with me. This man is speaking real talk here. And I'm guaranteeing y'all understand what he's talking about, because you have the same understanding and you go through the same battle. Verse 22. For I delight in the Torah, or in the law of Yah, according to the inward man. I delight in the Torah of Yah. That's not an anti-Torah man speaking. That's not a man who's promoting Christianity. That's not a man who's promoting John Paul or Pope Benedict and their doctrines. Not at all. 23. But I see another law in my members, battling against the Torah of my mind, and bringing me into captivity to the law of sin, which is in my members, which is in my body. Look at that. He see another law, and that other law is the law of sin, transgression of the law. This man is giving you his faults, as we all do, and he's giving you his struggles, as we all have. Does this sound like a man that's different than what we go through? Are you not comprehending what he's saying? And like I say, you comprehending him because you go through it. He understands it just like we understand it. Let's continue. He said, listen, he's battling against the Torah of my mind. That's where it's at, spiritual. The Torah, the law that's in his mind. Yah's Torah is in our minds, represented by the heart. It's spoken in symbolic language as the heart. This is Shaul writing this. Verse 24. Wretched man that I am, who shall deliver me from this body of death? And that's a line, if you all remember, from Lauryn Hill's Old Jerusalem song. She took that from here, right here. Verse 25. Thanks to Yah, through Yahushua HaMashiach, our Master, Yahushua the Messiah. So then, with the mind, I myself truly serve the Torah of Yah, but with the flesh, the law of sin. So you know what? If you're serving Yah if you're serving the Torah of Yah in your mind, then you're battling with the flesh, which is the law of sin. The Torah that's on your mind will overcome the flesh if you live in it. He say he served the Torah. Listen at that. He served the Torah of Yah. He served the law of Yah. That's the understanding we got to have. He once upon a time did the law, but now he served the law. You serve Yah through his word. You serve Yah through his law. So now he's getting the understanding. I did the Torah. I was raised in Torah, but now I'm serving Torah. There's a great difference. A great difference. And I don't see how this can be an anti-Torah man here. Still not feeling it. Still not seeing it. Let's go to Romans chapter 8. Romans chapter 8. We'll read verses 1 through 9. Romans chapter 8, verses 1 through 9. Cain, Paulie. Let me just explain that. I forgot the name of this book. I read this book years ago when I first came into this walk. It's a giant book, about 500-600 pages. And it's called, it's either The History of Christianity, The Workings of Christianity, something like that, where they gave a whole history. And of course, they dwelled a lot on Shaul. And they were speaking about that there was a description written by the Romans of how Shaul looked. They said that he was short, he was bald-headed, he had a wide nose, and he was very dark. He was very dark-skinned. You know, they call it swarthy, something like that. But they said that he was very dark. Now, from my understanding, the name Paul means short or shorty or something like that. You know, that's what the Italians, you know, every time you see a mob movie, there's 2 or 3 polies, you know. So, you know, that's why they gave him that name. But we know he is Shaul. So, let's go to Romans chapter 8. yeah, olive skin. There you go. Yeah, but it was funny because when I read that, I was like, wow, they described him as a black man. Cain, he was mistaken for an Egyptian. Absolutely. So of course he was dark skinned like the Egyptians. Yeah, absolutely. He was mistaken for an Egyptian. So hallelujah. So we know that he was a black Hebrew Israelite, black skinned. We're not black Hebrews, but black skinned. He was a Hebrew Israelite.